so with my productions, working with like hip hop and R&B culture and artists and stuff like that, a lot of times we don't get the same opportunities that a lot of other genres or types of productions will get, and that's something that you kind of have to work with. Also, it's unfortunate just because the percentage of the population that cares about what we're doing is many times a lot smaller than what other people are doing, or what people care about, the other type of genres and stuff that are out there. So it's kind of one of those things, you have to make what you can of it. Did I say that right? You have to make the best out of what you have. Yeah.
Your
Kind of get what I'm saying.
Your approach sounds different. Like I said, so far it's been musicians.
Yeah.
And when I present obstacles, they immediately go to like themselves being their biggest obstacle.
Yeah. No.
Do you have any? Because you sound real confident, prepared.
Yeah.
Wise. You know what I mean? You're taking a wise approach. You really prepped up. You're not just diving in like that '90s dream of going to LA and blowing up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. That part of that is kind of driven by my fear of failing. Like failure has never been an option for me. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times there was plenty of times where I was like, I just wanted to drop everything and be like, look, I'm gonna go do this now. But there's always that voice in my back of my head that's like, nah, let's, I guess playing it safe is a good way to put it. And I've played it safe for a long time. I've been doing that for probably about 4 years. But for me, it was, I didn't want to jump into it and then fail and then have to start over and come back and do it all. I was like, I want to do this right the first time. I don't want to have to come back and start over. So I'm going to make sure that I got all my T's crossed and all my I's dotted first and be patient with it. And then when the time is right, then make sure I jump in once I have everything that I needed. So, 4 years of psyching myself up and watching these inspirational videos and you can do it, you just gotta blah, and all this stuff. So, I mean, it's been a lot of mental back and forth over the years, but at this point that I'm at right now, it's like, it's definitely like I know it's time, you know what I'm saying? So I'm very confident in my abilities and the preparation that I've taken over these years to get to this point. I probably wouldn't sound this way if we did this interview like 2 years ago, but it's just when you know the time is right, man, so it's time to do it.
That's a good point too, like just the progress you make personally and professionally between 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It's great. Like how you wouldn't be ready for certain things 2, 3 years ago.
Right.
You had to be patient.
Right.
So what's Alpha Male Visuals all about? In regards to vision, and where's it going? What's the big picture?
So, I kind of have different stages of how I'm envisioning my business going once I get to Atlanta. The first step is making sure that I can get my finances right. So making sure that I'm, charging prices and getting enough business per month to, have a profit over my expenses that are coming out. So, I mean, that's my first step, is making sure, okay, do I have a group of clientele that I can work with consistently and I'm paying this much or getting paid this much, and making sure that I'm getting a profit off of it and not going under every month. So that's my first thing. Then after that is kind of what I did here in Kansas City, building a name out there in Atlanta, just because, I've been working for a few years here, but I'm going to be a new guy when I get out there. So the next step is building that brand and building that reputation of having, high quality videos with recognizable names. So, my marketing strategy when I get there is to go after, those artists who have got some momentum behind them and they got a buzz going, but, they're not necessarily at that mainstream level yet, but they have, a large following, and the kind of those middle ground artists where they're not necessarily considered like local artists anymore, but they're not like big time. So going after those middle guys first and building a good foundation with them, and then once I get that solid, then we get into the final step, or a later step, I guess I should say, of going after the Futures and the Ushers and all of them. And then once I get to that point, then it's thoughts of expansion. I want to get to a point where Alpha Male Visuals isn't just video production anymore. We might have you know, a graphic design section of the company, and maybe I hire somebody else under that umbrella that's handling that side, and maybe a whole nother department that just does wedding videos or something like that, and just kind of having like a parent company of different stuff all under one roof. But that's way farther down the line.
You're definitely a businessman.
Yeah.
Just like the way, you know, just thinking structure and whatnot. Is there a bigger artistic vision? Or are you more concerned with just like weddings? Like, I personally wouldn't want to do it, but I know how lucrative it could be to have that department.
Right.
You know, so is there something that you would rather be doing while everybody else is doing weddings and music videos?
Yeah, music videos is my thing. Like, my passion with music videos comes from the music side, because, you know, before I was doing Alpha visuals, I was like rapping and singing back in the day. You know what I'm saying? I was making music, and that was really my first passion was music and writing. So once I found like my visual talent as well, music videos was kind of like the perfect combination between those two. So you know, above anything, you know, music videos is the main thing that I want to do. But of course, you know, that can turn into movies later down the line, or we've done a couple of short films also. But yeah, movies is cool as well. But you know, out of all those different branches that we would have, I mean, my hand would primarily be in the music video, just because that's what I really like to do.
What's the difference in realities for you between when you're being the artist designing the video, laying this thing out, storyboarding, and then being the businessman that's counting man hours and rental fees, et cetera, et cetera? I mean,
being an artist and you're doing something that you're passionate about, I mean, for one, you don't really look at the work as work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I enjoy doing those things and putting that stuff together. At the same time, you know, being the businessman, you have your set times where you work. So it's like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then that's it. With the artist side of it, it's like work pretty much never stops. You're pretty much always working. Even when you're not trying to work, I might be driving down the street trying to go get some food, and I might see like a dope area, and I'm like, oh, that'd be dope to shoot a little music video there. Like, it's just, it never turns off, and it's always going. So that's one thing, is that it's like an ongoing thing. But it's, you know, like I said, you don't really look at it as work. Two is that, you know, the business side, the 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever is safe. Like I said earlier, I mean, you can kind of just cruise and, you know, not do too much or whatever, and you know, you're still getting the same amount of money during the same amount of time period and whatever. And you know, being that artist is more risky, because for one, you're making money off of your own merits and how well you perform and the connections that you have, and not just, you know, you showed up somewhere and did something for however long you're working that day. So this is a different mentality, man. Being that artist makes you have to grind harder, because if you try to slack and just cruise through and go through the motions, you're either going to be mediocre and struggling, or, you know, it's not going to work out for you. So you really got to push to make it happen.
What influence do you want to be having? Like, you know, whenever you're making the videos, are you thinking about how it's going to affect somebody? Or are you looking at your nephew like, oh, he's looking up to me and I'm doing my thing, I'm chasing my dream?
Yeah.
Doing my own thing.
So for me, my thing that I kind of want to communicate out to people, kind of following the model that I did, is that sometimes, even though I'm passionate about the video production side, and so let me back up. So there's this conception out there that you hear a lot of times from, you know, artists or entrepreneurs in general, where they put this thing out there where they're like, man, you never see anybody get rich off a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 5, which a lot of times is true, but doesn't necessarily mean don't go work at 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, because to me, I use it as an avenue to make what I want to do happen. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, if you just drop everything and just jump in headfirst to the artistry, you know, some people are successful doing it that way, and just, you know, when they just drop everything and just make it happen. And if you are talented enough, you know, sometimes that's all you need. But a lot of times, you know, there's that struggle for a long period of time. And so, you know, one of the things that I would hope to communicate out to people is that, you know, don't just throw the 9 to 5 to the wayside. I mean, of course, it's not something that you want to do, but sometimes it might be necessary to get to the point where you can make that leap and that jump and do it safely without, you know, crashing and burning type thing. So I'm actually going to speak to some college students next week to talk about, you know, using a 9 to 5 to do what you really want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, 9 to 5 isn't a bad thing to have in your head. You can use it as a tool, like a means to an end, to get to what you want to do if you're not at that point. Like when you graduate and say you want to be a whatever, if you don't have the skills or money or connections to make that happen, you can use that 9 to 5 to build up to getting to the point where you can do those things. So, you know, that's one thing I would hope to influence people is, you know, hard work and dedication and being persistent. That's the thing. Like, a lot of people will get that spirit and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this, blah blah blah, and then they do it for like 5 or 6 months, and then, you know, something happens in their life and it kind of derails them, and then they kind of lose that fire, lose that passion, as opposed to if they kind of stuck with it and, you know, kept doing it for those 2-3 years, whatever. You know, you never know how good you could be then if you would have just stuck with it. And so, just being hard-headed, man. You can't let stuff, you know, just because something happens, it doesn't stop the show. You got to be persistent with it, and if you're really, you know, passionate about it, you know, you're not gonna let anything stop you. That kind of answer that question.
Yeah, I like the way you went with it, dude.
Yeah.
You know, really, I mean, because you came in like, all right, quit my job, I'm about to go do this, and then you came back like an essay and concluded with, don't quit your job.
Right.
Don't throw away your job. So
Right.
I like that. I'm really just thinking of how to wrap it up, man. You know, we kind of did like 2 birds, 1 stone on a couple things.
Okay.
I guess you could close with just talking about, in the context of you're about to take this leap, like why it's going to be worth it, and, you know, and kind of reiterate why you're about to do this.
Yeah, man. So making this leap is, you know, is more than just making money. You know what I'm saying? It's making money doing something that you love doing, and it's that feeling of satisfaction. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I was at my 9 to 5, it was cool. I was getting paid, but I was just there, just doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, I wasn't sitting back and I was like, man, that was cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't get that feeling, as opposed to when I'm doing this stuff and at the end of a video and I put it out and people are seeing it. Like, that's a great feeling, man, to like know that you worked on that project for so long and put in so many hours, and then seeing people appreciate it the way that, you know, you did whenever you were writing it or putting it together. Just that feeling of fulfillment, and doing that for a living, man. That's kind of why I'm chasing that dream. Shout out to Matt Diamond Photography, man. You're watching the Chasers web series. I'm Roger Alexander with Alpha Male Visuals, man. You can catch me at alphamalevisuals.com, or you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @A_M_visuals. Hit me up. I always respond to, you know, people reaching out, stuff like that. I'm a friendly dude. Chill.
Say something.
Check. Alpha Male Visuals in the building. You know what I'm saying? Matt Diamond Photography.
Yeah, there you go.